We're going live. Okay.
Pressing the button, Karin.
All right. All right. So we're live now. So good night, everyone. Welcome to Wake the Nation Black History Month uh, series. Well, we've been doing a Black History Month series. We had Mrs. Sherry Loveday, who's a therapist, a licensed clinical marriage therapist. We had that I had to do a speech because the person who was supposed to have been here was unable to make it that night. And then we had the first time author, Mrs. Danette Green, Beautifully Broken, No, Beautifully Blessed. The book is about women who've been abused. And tonight, my co-host is here with me, Mrs. Thais Love, and we will be talking about a couple of I'm going to let her go last because she's going to lead us into Women's History Month. And it's a Black history tied into and just segueing into Women's History Month. Tonight's Black History Month, we're dealing with, are we enjoying the legacies of our progenitors, or are we still fighting the cause they did? And I know that in some ways we are enjoying the legacies. However, I will let you figure out whether or not we're still kind of fighting some of the same causes they have. So tonight I selected Thurgood Marshall to present Justice Thurgood Marshall. His name actually was Thorogood. And I thought, what a name to give your child. I somehow believe his parents looked at it as very, a name that would, he would do things that were thoroughly good. So either which way, he did do things that were thoroughly good for people who were underserved and for the Black race as well. So we know that he was a civil rights lawyer at first, and a civil rights lawyer, not just any civil rights lawyer, but he actually used the courts to fight the Jim Crow laws and dismantle segregation. And if you know, Jim Crow laws were laws that were created in the states and nationally that uh, were derogative for Blacks, right?
Yes.
They did. And so we have, he fought to dismantle that and did. And so before he did that, though, he was born in Baltimore, Maryland. And on July 2nd, 1908, that was the same year that my grandmother was born. And he accomplished a whole lot before he passed away in January 24th, 1993. Now, some of his accomplishments, he graduated from Lincoln University in Pennsylvania in 1930. And he applied to the Maryland Law School, but was rejected. Why? Because he was Black. However, it never stopped him. And we have to, we sometimes we have obstacles in our way, and we figure, oh, we're going to let that stop us. Sometimes we may have the wrong professor, or in elementary school or junior high or high school, the wrong teachers. When I say wrong teachers, teachers that don't have our best interests at heart, not teaching us as we should, but it should never stop you from accomplishing. And even if your parents or anyone else put you down, say you're no good, you'll come to nothing. If God has placed something inside of you that you have a gift or a talent, or you have a leading to do something, then follow through. Today we have what? you can Google anything, right? And you can Google, you can find out who's giving free classes, where free classes being held, or you can go to what? YouTube. And no, I'm not being paid by anybody, but I'm just saying you can find anything on YouTube. You can build a house from scratch on YouTube. I'm telling you, YouTube has just so many things on there. So yes. So and going back to Justice Thurgood Marshall, he never stopped pursuing law, and he eventually received his law degree from Howard Law School in 1933. That tells you something. 3 years later, come on. So at Howard, he met his mentor. And that's another cool point that I wanted to point out, that we all need a mentor, right? So it's good to have mentors, because his mentor encouraged him to use law for social change. And so he did. He was the nation's first Black United States Supreme Court Justice. And he argued some good case. We're going to get a little bit into that. You know, talk about separate but equal being unconstitutional in public schools. So that's actually what I wanted to talk about a little bit, as to, are we still there? Right now, after graduating from Howard, as I said, he worked with his mentor. His first case was Murray versus Pearson, and working with his mentors, whose name was Charles Hamilton Houston, they fought because the school were denying someone just because they were what? Black. And so they argued that the law school violated the 14th Amendment, guaranteed to the guarantee of protection of the law, an amendment that addresses citizenship and the rights of citizens, right? Soon after that, he joined NAACP as a staff lawyer. In 1940, he was named the chief of NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, which was created to mount a legal assault against what? Segregation. So he was nominated to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in 1961 by President John F. Kennedy. And 4 years later, Lyndon B. Johnson named him U.S. Solicitor General. And on August 30th, 1967, he was what? Confirmed by the U.S. Senate and joined the U.S. Supreme Court, becoming the first Black justice. He had a 25-year tenure that he used to do a lot of good. He fought for the affirmative action for minorities, held strong cases against the death penalty, and supported a woman's right to choose if an abortion was appropriate for her. Thurgood Marshall, this gentleman made significant impact on American culture and society, not just the Black culture. And I love it. Hallelujah. Okay. His mission was equal justice for all. And all means all. Great. So he used the power of the courts to fight racism and discrimination, to tear down the Jim Crow law, as I said before. And the Jim Crow, it was a segregation law, is what it was. And to change the status quo and make a better life for our nation and our people. Now, I'm going to read this, as one of the nation's leading attorneys, he argued 32 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court, and he won 29. Come on, guys. Woo. Yes. Oh, so some of his most notable cases are these. Take note. Smith versus Allwright, 1944, which found that the states could not exclude Black voters from primaries. And in 2020, what happened? We're at a place. Oh, I don't know. Are we regressing? Come on, guys. The legacies that were left for us, we've certainly got to do better with it, right? In 1948, Shelley versus Kramer, which struck down race-based restrictive housing covenants. Are we having housing issues still today? I want to, there's a gentleman whose name is Oscar Lewis, who wrote on the culture of poverty. I don't know if you guys have read that, but you know, there is a quote. It's a biblical quote as well, and a lot of people use it. The poor will always be among us, right? So this is, but Oscar was writing about, you know, poor having little or no money or goods to support themselves, and that basically many times they were boxed into neighborhoods and communities that that even the very next block over, or just you know, the next line over, wealth would begin, yet you'd have a whole community of poor people living. We have that in our in various boroughs and states, and so it's still an issue. It's still very much an issue. We see it. Okay, so all right, so that's something. And then we get to Sweat versus Painter in 1950, which deemed separate facilities for Black professionals and graduate students unconstitutional. And, you know, that we can say now in colleges. I think in most of the CUNY SUNY colleges, it's equal, right? Do you agree, co-host? She's like, okay, be quiet.
Well, now they there were a number of things that had to be put in place in order for Black folks to even be able to attend college, graduate, and be considered on the same footing, their educational degrees and licenses, you know, and so yeah, there was strides made, but we still have a lot of work to do. I know as a graduate of Hunter College myself, back in 1990, we the school, it was you know, they had, you know, all races of students and everything, but they kind of institutionalized the segregating of the races. At the time that I was attending, the school was listed as 60% Black and Latino populated. So that means 60% of the school's population was Black and Latino at that time. But when you looked at the classes, the college level classes, that wasn't the case. Most of the Black and Latino students, when they arrived at Hunter College, they were immediately placed in remedial courses. Mm-hmm. And they spent at least 2 years in those remedial courses before they were allowed to take the college courses. And so I being a Midwood graduate, Midwood High School graduate, Midwood, I had taken some AP courses and things of that nature. So I didn't when I took the college entrance exam, I was well, above college level, so I didn't have to take any remedial courses. But a lot of people that I know were stuck in those remedial courses for at least 2 years. And you had to pass those remedial courses first before you can take the college level courses. And so when I was taking my college level courses, very often I'd be in the classroom with 40, 50 people, and I'd be one of two Blacks in the whole class. Okay. And that was my experience throughout my whole 4 years in college. And very often I sat in the class and I would sit front and center to make sure that the professor saw me and could put the name with the face. And very often I would be sitting right there in the class and the professor would say things that were derogatory or give a very Eurocentric interpretation of the material or the curriculum, and would say things right in front of us, and nobody would say anything. Nobody expressed being offended. I had one class where it was a Western civilization class, and the professor, he was just over the top. Like, he wasn't subtle about it at all. And I would raise my hand, and just ask a question,
Right.
to make him, understand that, the way you said that, is it, is that the way, is that the truth? Or, can you expound upon what you just said? Because I'm sitting here. When I took my psychology courses, and we had to discuss Freud, oh my God, I withdrew from, I completed the course, but by the time I got to the 200 level psychiatry courses, I couldn't take it. I was like, that's it. Freud is just way too, racist for me, and I can't even deal with him. I used to write my papers for my psych courses under protest. I went out of my way to find Black and brown psychiatrists and sociologists that wrote books and did studies and had statistics that totally disproved everything that Freud had to say about the minds of people of African descent. And my professor, that professor appreciated what I did.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, but
That is
my
a good
Western
thing.
civilization professor, I wound up having to, after I graduate, had to go back to the school and confront him because he refused to put my grade in, my
Oh,
final
didn't know
grade
that.
in. He felt that I asked too many questions and that I should have just sat in the class and be seen and not heard. That's what he said to me, actually.
Wow.
And I'm like, you're trying to hold up my degree, and we're not having that. So
Yeah.
but he did. He entered my grade in actually 2 years after I graduated.
Wow. I've never heard of that happening
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
But
Because I was afraid of stuff happening like that, I made sure to take extra classes so that I had more than enough credits to
I did that.
graduate so that,
I did that.
you know,
I did
because
that, but it wasn't because of that. I graduated from Bernard Baruch, but I did high school in Jamaica.
right.
So I did my O levels through England.
Mhm.
And so when I migrated here, I I I had to take an English and a mathematics remedial course that first semester, along with, I think it was an art course or something like that. And actually, when I was in the class, the both professors just say just take the finals and go register for something else, because they're like, you don't need it. So I did that. I took the finals, and I went and registered. I got the grades for that, so I went to, and just registered for another class, two other classes. And then I transferred to Bernard Baruch, which is where I graduated from. And so got my bachelor's from. And I don't know, I did not we have various races there, but I didn't feel, where, can I tell you where I experienced? I remember I went for a job, and I kid you not, after I was interviewed, the first interview, I was called back for a second interview. I was tested, and they were like, they never saw anybody got that high grade before. So they were like, the vice president of the company asked to interview me. And so I went into the interview, and then she said to me, so did I bring my diploma? So I was like, bring my diploma. Blah, blah, blah. I didn't know you had to bring a diploma to go for a job interview, right? You bring a resume, which I have. And she says, this, she said, well, are you sure you graduated from Baruch? So I was like, oh, I know I graduated. I was trying to wonder
You
where she
see?
was coming from. So I didn't answer. I just kind of looked at her. And because I didn't answer, she just continued to speak. And then she says, because, um, I've had family members who went to Baruch and didn't graduate. So how could you have graduated? And I was like, so at that point, and honestly, I didn't even know what was happening, but I just found it to be offensive. So I simply stood up and picked up my resume and just walked out. I was just like, and she was calling me, and then the secretary, whoever, I was just like, I just had like the worst feeling. I don't know, but I felt bad. I just felt hurt, and tears started running down. So I simply just kept going. I went to the elevator, and I just kept going. I was just like, I didn't know what had happened. And for me, as I said, it was just something new that I would experience that I had never experienced before. But hey, here I was in America, and I was experiencing that. So, it happens. And so, um, I unfortunately would hope that that's not happening still today. But unfortunately, I've heard young people say the same, or not necessarily the same thing, but having discriminatory remarks being
Yeah.
told to them. So, you
Yeah.
know, and so I think that, wait a minute, he fought, and Justice Thurgood Marshall is someone who, when I got here, a matter of fact, when my firstborn, like anytime I would be like, he did like everything on Thurgood. And so,
Aw.
and yeah, and so, it's just, I've admired the way in which he fought for justice, for all. So that's my take. So, um we know his most famous case was the landmark. Who knows what that was? And later I taught in the public school system here, so I had to go to Brooklyn College. What? 1954, Brown versus Board of Education. Yes, a case in which the Supreme Court Justice Earl Warren noted, in the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. I'm grateful that Justice Thurgood Marshall's civil rights litigation work still continues today, to this day. However, I want to read you guys something. And this is called apartheid-like separation found in city schools. Now, I'm sure many people are aware of redlining. Many might not know about redlining. Redlining is a practice that banks designate whole communities. So most low-income neighborhoods of color where loans, usually housing loans, are restricted. You've heard about redlining, right? And so it's unethical and it's illegal. It recently became illegal, right? I forgot when, but this was practiced for years just to keep Blacks and people of color from owning their own homes and from getting into certain neighborhoods.
It was practiced for decades.
Yeah. Oh, I said years. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Years. I don't want.
For decades.
Yes, for decades. So I want you to get that it's been around for.
And it's been in practice even once slavery was abolished. That was what the whole reparations argument was about.
Right. Yes. So this is what, as I said, that it was a case where we're talking about separate but equal. Now, as a teacher that taught in a public school system, and I realized education is not equal across the board. My kids went to school in different neighborhoods, but I find in Title I districts or in poorer neighborhoods or schools that teaches like transient students that are traveling from shelters, students that are coming in from the islands or Africa, that they just come in, and the education was not the same. And education across board, I'm talking about right here in Brooklyn. This is something that I know for a fact. It's not the same. You have District 17 and District 18 borders, and it's still different. Why? District 21, there are certain districts in which the level of education is here, and then in others it's down here. So when the kids take the national exam, how are they supposed to? All right, so this is probably not the forum, but listen, we're bringing it. It's called Wake the Nation for a reason, because we want you to be aware. We want you to be alert, and not just to be aware, but to do something. So I appeal to our educators. I appeal to our elected officials. I appeal to parents and grandparents that if it's just because something has been the same way for decades or centuries, doesn't mean that it should be. There are people who fought. They have shed their own blood. Many have lost their lives to fight for us to be where we are today. And so why then do we Listen to what I'm going to read to you. So, the Schott Foundation for Public Education they released a report which is entitled "Rotting Apple: Education Redlining in New York City," where it reveals that the city's school system funds experienced teachers and quality programs are unequally distributed according to race and neighborhood. There's a study. So here we had Justice Marshall fighting for the separate, but because if you notice, do you realize that in certain schools, in certain neighborhoods, it's like all Black kids and brown kids, right? It's just the BIPOC population, and the education is not the same. Why not? Is my question, Mr. School Chancellor. Why not? Or is it Mrs. School Chancellor? Oh, it's a female now, right? Oh, hold up. Let me get this right. Oh, I'm telling you. But the thing about it is that we have to do better. I firmly believe that our children can become productive citizens rather than dissidents. The gun violence and that we're having, and heavy crime in certain neighborhoods, shootings every day. It's many times by design. I have seen enough and read enough to figure out that part, the by design part. However, what a city we would be if we had more youth centers that teach our youths. Listen, some youths are kinetic. Not all, everybody is not very cerebral, but it doesn't meaning there are some people who they like reading and they will sit and read, but there are those who to use their hands to build something. The genius that's there, right? There's some kids that are very skilled at at technology. However, you know, the theoretical part of it might be a little bit difficult, but it doesn't mean that they're not brilliant. There's no brilliance up there. And I know children will rise to the occasion. The youths will rise to the occasion, given and I'm glad Shirley Chisholm Center will be in the Flatbush area, but I want other neighborhoods to have youth centers as well, so that the youths can go. They can learn trades and learn skills. And let me tell you something. As someone who does is out there in our community, I have spoken to young men and women who have gone to jail or been back out, right? And let me tell you something. They didn't want to commit a crime in the first place. They didn't want to be angry. They didn't want to shoot anybody. They didn't want to take a life. For those who have taken lives, they didn't. Matter of fact, that never goes away from them. The thing, what they want, there was a young man, never forget this young man. Well, I was like, I asked him, what can we do for you? You know what he said? He said, first he said, I need some place to live. He said, no, I am where I'm staying right now. He said, it's okay. I just need a job. I need a job. He just needed to work, and can I tell you, if you see this young man now, you wouldn't believe it's the same person we met like what, year and a half, 2 years ago. Huh? Just the difference. So just to have that sensibility, that sense of pride, that sense of knowing you can do something, you can accomplish something, is what our young people need. So put some more monies into the centers, put monies into them getting the proper education. Let's start there. So anyway.
I just I agree with what you said earlier, that this whole thing is by design. Our children, study after study, has been taken to show the brilliance of our children, to show the that there is no disparity between the brain functioning of, you know, people of African descent, Black and brown peoples, versus the brain functionings of other races. And so, you know, the truth of the matter is that, you know, given the opportunity and the training, we all could excel. But what's happening is those that are responsible for providing the resources so that schools in all neighborhoods would get the same curriculum or get the same extracurricular resources.
Yeah.
Those people who make those decisions, that's where the disparity comes in at. Okay. And so it's those people that have already decided, even before the children are born, that, okay, you know, you live in this area, you're going to have this amount of resources, you're going to get this amount of education, and we have this jail cell already set aside for you. And so it's bigger than, oh, let's provide a community center. No, community center is a Band-Aid approach. We need more than community center. We need more than okay, get that young person some job training, and so that they can get a job. I mean, we have even now very educated young people. More young people are going to college and graduating
And not getting the
now more
jobs.
than ever.
And
But
not getting,
there's no jobs. I
then
mean,
they're
they
not
got
getting,
all this education,
they're
you
not getting
know,
the
and
jobs.
no jobs. And
Yeah.
the pandemic really brought that point home, you know, where many people who had jobs all of a sudden didn't have a job. And those who were trying to get a job couldn't get a job because there were no jobs available like that. And so
Yeah.
many people had to turn to their own creativity and start businesses and things of that nature. Starting a business is not emphasized in school. You know, unless you're around someone that's an entrepreneur, or you have were exposed to entrepreneurship, you would then you know, want to go and find out, okay, how do I start a business? Okay, let me just go ahead and start a business. But I'm saying all that to say we were, well, I was, when I was going to school, they had affirmative action
Oh,
out.
yes, yes. They're
And
good. They're good.
and so there were supposedly uh money set aside to make sure that a certain number of um people of African descent got an education, got certain jobs, got, you know, certain opportunities that they would not normally be afforded.
Right.
And
So,
even with that, they wound up, you know, taking that out and claiming that it's reverse discrimination.
right.
You
But the
know,
thing,
so we're at square
okay.
one again.
But the reason why I said youth centers are, they should get youth centers, because, but I did say we need to start at in the elementary school by changing, making education equal, giving better um uh 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 subject matter for the student, so that they can be prepared. However, for the ones that are already out there, to give something. But as you said, there aren't the jobs, but so much more can be done. And this is why we do have to hold our elected officials accountable, for who we're electing to go into office to represent us. What are they doing to help our people, our communities, the communities that they represent? So that is important. But let me just read this. It says New York City's 32 community schools districts, right? They vary from prosperous, predominantly white and Asian neighborhoods in Manhattan, such as Community School District 2, Battery Park City, to Upper East Side, and Queens, 26 Community School District, Hillcrest, Flushing Heights, Fresh Meadows, with excellent schools, to low performing districts serving highly segregated, impoverished Black and Latino neighborhoods. See, I just wanted to read it because I didn't want anybody to think, wait, she's just making up the facts. Oh, by the way, hi Ria, hi Nadia, hi Merlene. I see that you guys were watching. Yeah. So impoverished Black and Latino neighborhoods, primarily in the Bronx, Community School District 7, Mott Haven, Port Morris, and Brooklyn School District 16, Bedford Stuyvesant. They've left out some school districts right here in Brooklyn.
I'm a graduate of District 16, Bedford Stuyvesant, and so are my children. A couple of my children also. And when I was going to school in District 16, it was we had a gifted and talented program where they gave us the curriculum was accelerated, and they basically were testing us just to see how much we could do and how well we can test, given the curriculum, that they gave us. And all of a sudden they cut that out, and once they took that out, I mean, the district was still, even back then, it was not a great educational district, but we had so many that graduated from that gifted and talented program that, some of us, were able to make it through and, become successful and leave the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But yeah, District 16 has been considered a low performing district
But they're
for
not
decades.
and they're not the only one.
No.
And what happens is that students of color then within these districts would be less likely to graduate from high school with a Regents diploma, as opposed to more than 55% of white students that graduate with Regents diploma. And so it makes the playing field very unequal and unbalanced if that's a requirement for college and for finding a job. So and parents, you have to get involved. If you're well, and I pray you're well, you have to get involved with your children's education and talk to your elected official if you're in that district that you're like. And to be fair, sometimes we won't know what the if we don't travel out of our neighborhoods, or if we don't do the research, we don't know that, hey, something else is being taught over there. I taught in Community School District 17, but my children attended a different school district, and I would use their work to teach my students. And then I was told, what? I was like, why aren't they being taught this? Because if this is what the national testing is based on, then this should be what they are learning. And that's what I discovered. So I would incorporate it into my lesson plans. Yes, that's what I did because I do not understand why the disparities are so. Now, I can't say I don't understand. I've come to learn why the disparities are so great. Where I'm a little bit perplexed is why, as it continues to remain that way, when we have, as you've said, now if you even look, many of our elected officials are people of color. We have a vice president that is a person of color, right? We had a president that was a Black president of African descent, right? So being in 2023, then why are we still, I think, and I don't know, from what I've known, and I will end here so that we can always revisit this another time. But I'll end here so that the Queen can can make her presentation. But in my eyes, Justice Marshall fought a good fight, won many battles, and I kind of feel like we shouldn't be in this where we have it's like by design now they're just communities that, okay, so you'll just live within that community. I remembered someone who wanted to register their child in a certain school and we're told, oh no, you can't. And I was like, and this was 2019. And I was like, what? No, well, don't just sit on that. You can't just sit on that as a parent. Come on. Something has to be done about that. So I just, we're bringing the information that we're bringing to you so that you can be aware of what's happening. Sometimes you see things happening and you think that, yeah, we've made strides and, we have. However, more can be done. And so be proactive. Don't just go from work to home or work to church to home or church to home or just sit and binge watch television shows, or what are they called nowadays? I don't even know. But
Don't
anyway.
ask me. I'm not,
All right,
I'm not a
you're not
TV
watching television
watcher.
either. But you know what? You can watch documentaries. Talk to your elected official, talk to your district leader, find out what's going on in your community, get involved, do something. If your children are older, where like mine are now, you can still advocate for the younger children. You may have grandchildren, but let us not sit idly by and say, oh, we're part of the diaspora, we are part of our communities, blended together. When we work together, we make our communities stronger, we make our communities more productive. And so that is my appeal. And now I'll turn it over to Mrs. Thais Love, and so she'll come to you with the person or persons that she's about. I'll let her tell you.
Good evening. Good evening. In celebration of our Black history.
And she looks very regal, right? You look beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I come today to talk to you about women that were in leadership way back in the day. I'm talking about these women. They had made such an impact on history and on societies, the societies that they govern, even the kingdoms that they govern, that they very often were not given the respect and the kudos that were due them, at least not by present day society. But present day society is looking back at them and, reinterpreting who these women were. These women were they were women in leadership, and they made huge strides. So much so that present day movies are made about them. I don't know if some of you are familiar with the movie Woman King. The Woman King movie is based on a group of women that ruled hundreds, even thousands of years ago. Okay, I'm talking about these women were mentioned even in the Bible. Okay, because of their position of leadership and power, and these women ruled with the same integrity, the same force, fierceness, even as they protected their kingdoms as their male counterparts. These
Viola
women,
Davis plays the star in that movie.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
And these women were mentioned, they had a title, but because of the changes in the language and reinterpretation of the spelling of these women's title, their title turned into a name. And so many people, when they hear the name, they think, oh, that's that person's name. The woman or women that I am referring to is Candace. In the Bible, Philip has a discussion with an Ethiopian eunuch who was a high representing official. He was an advisor to the Queen Candace of Ethiopia. Now, that word Candace, it was not her name. Her name was not Candace. Candace was her title, okay? Her name was Garshom, okay? Garshome. That was her name, her first name. But her title was Candace. We pronounce it as Candace because that is the Greco-Roman spelling of the title. The title, that word is to be properly pronounced as Kandake. Okay. The word Candace that we see in our Bibles even is spelled Candace, or sometimes you would see it Candice, and it is pronounced Candace. Okay. But that word Candace is derived from the ancient Cushite word Kandake, which is spelled Kandake, or some places spell it Kadake. Kandake or Kadake.
Okay.
And that is a title which means queen, queen mother. That title was placed upon women who ruled and served as the leader of many of the kingdoms in Nubia, as well as later on in Ethiopia. The Kandake were in power for many, many years, many, many years. I'm talking, my research tells me that there were Kandake in the kingdom of Nubia as far back as 1000 BC, okay? 1,000 years before Christ. Kandake were seated on the throne and they were ruling, okay? And the Kandake title, women served in that role as they were queens and they were queen mothers, okay? The Kandake, she was either the mother of the heir to the throne, the next male heir to the throne. So she was the mother, or she was the sister of the king, okay? Which, if she was the sister of the king, she would then be the next queen mother of the next king. You see what I'm saying? So either the I guess the it was not the king's wife,
Right.
that bore the heir to the throne.
Mm-hmm.
The Kandake were it was passed down, you know, through the family line on the female side, okay, from the mother. And so you know, if the mother had a son, okay, he was king. He takes the throne. If the mother had a daughter, okay, she would be the next queen, okay, and she would be the you know, the mother of the next in line to the throne, which they, you know, if it was a son, then he would be king. If it was another daughter, she would be queen. And that's how it went down the line. There were at least 2 Kandake mentioned in the Bible. The first, well, the one that I mentioned earlier, Kandake Garshema, she was the Kandake of Ethiopia during the time when Philip was talking with her eunuch, and the eunuch wound up giving his life to the Lord, and he was so excited he ran back to his country and advised the Kandake Gershoma to do the same, and she did so, and converted her entire kingdom of Ethiopia to Christianity. So much to the point that to this day, Ethiopia is a Christian nation right now. Okay. And Kendake Gershoma, she ruled during the time of 40 to 50 CE. So that was during the Christian era, while Jesus was around. She ruled during his time and even after. So she was there from 40 CE to 50 CE. That's Kendake Gershoma. And there was another Kendake even before her that is also mentioned in the Bible. Kendake Makiba. Kendake Makiba was the real name of Queen of the Queen of Sheba.
Yeah.
Now, the Queen of Sheba, she was the queen of Nubia. Okay, and the Kandake from Nubia go all the way back, as far back as 1,000 years before Christ. Okay, and so when Kendake Makiba, when she heard about what Solomon was doing and the God that he served, and she watched his kingdom and how it flourished and it was blessed and secure. And she even watched how he ruled his kingdom. She packed her bags and came with a whole slew of people carrying gifts and treasures even to present to King Solomon, just so that she can ask him about his God. And she came there, and the Bible says she questioned him, she grilled him, she asked him all kind of questions, because she wanted to know who this God is that you serve. Who is this great I am that blesses your kingdom and provides you with all that you need and then some. And the Bible says she questioned Solomon until she had no more questions. And Solomon, being the wise man that he was able to answer all of her questions, including riddles that she presented to him. And after he got through with all of the questions and the answers, she then decided to make Solomon's God her God. And she had spent many months there with Solomon. And the two of them got together. They decided that, Queen of Sheba, she wanted to make sure that she secured her kingdom. And she wanted to make sure that she had ample resources that her army could have and fight off attacks from surrounding kingdoms. And so she and King Solomon got together and they got married. King Solomon had they consummated their marriage, and after they consummated their marriage, Queen of Sheba, Kandake Makiba, she, even though she was offered to be queen of the kingdom of Israel, she told Solomon, "No, I don't want to be queen of Israel. My people, my kingdom, the kingdom of Sheba needs me. And so I'm going to go back to Sheba and I'm going to continue to rule there. Now that we are one, you can be my king from afar. I'll be your queen. from afar. And that's how that went. The story goes, the Bible mentions that it took 9 months to travel from the kingdom of Sheba to the kingdom of Israel. So when the Queen Makeba, Kandake Makeba, went back to Sheba, she was with child, and she gave birth shortly after that. And she gave birth to King Solomon's son, Menelik. And Menelik he was the heir to the throne. And Menelik ruled for a while, and Menelik had daughters who then continued on ruling. And so that is why King Menelik's daughters ruled and were Kandake, listed in the line of the Ethiopian Kandake. And the descendants of King Menelik ruled in Ethiopia from I just want to make sure I got from 332 BC all the way until 1973 AD. And the descendants of King Menelik, the Kandake, were in place, and they ruled in succession all of those years. They ruled and led Ethiopia all of those years, okay, until 1973. And in 1973, there was the government of Ethiopia was overthrown, and the last emperor or king of Ethiopia that was part of King Menelik's line, really King Solomon's line, was Haile Selassie. And he was the last ruling emperor, king of Ethiopia from that line. So King Solomon's line went all the way down to 1973 because of the Kandake. And they still, utilize that form of leadership. Okay, so their queen mothers, Kandake, still to this day in different parts of Africa. I had the pleasure of meeting a Kandake when I went to Ghana in 2019. And she frequents between Ghana and Brooklyn often. And so I had the pleasure of meeting her and having dinner with her by way of Reverend Richard Honeyfeld. The memory of the just is blessed. And so I just say all of that to say that the Kandake were women that ruled. They ruled. They didn't rule without a king. Well, they ruled without a king, but they had husbands. Their husbands technically would be king, but because of the way the succession to the throne was set up, The only ones that could be king they would have to be the son of the Kandake. And so
that is similar to the Queen Elizabeth, who
yes,
recently died. Her husband was her husband, but the children, her
right.
sons, actually.
Yes. That's where England fashioned their royalty from. It
Their
was a
reign,
practice that was you know practiced worldwide, and it's still practiced. But the emphasis, was a little different. The Kandake, not only did they rule, but they were in charge. They literally were commanders in chiefs of their armies, and they had fierce armies. Okay, many of the Kandake actually fought alongside their soldiers in wars. The Kandake were known for their fierce armies. Uh, uh, if you don't believe me, ask King Augustus Caesar. Yeah, he had a run-in with a Kandake, and she made sure that he was not advancing to Ethiopia. Okay, and she held him at bay for many years. He eventually took over one city and then went through that city into Egypt. But the Nubia kingdom and Ethiopia, those Kandake were fierce with their armies. Another one who had a run-in with Kandake was Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great thought he was going to try to take over Ethiopia. And the story goes that he went to do a surprise attack on Ethiopia. And when he got there, he was unpleasantly surprised to find out that the Kandake, she had her army already strategically placed where when Alexander the Great came into that city, he was already surrounded. He didn't even know. And when he came in to the city, he comes in and he sees the Kandake. There were her army seated on a warring elephant in front of her army. Okay, right there. When he comes in with his army into the city, she's already there, seated on her elephant, like, yeah, say something. Try me today. And so he was so afraid that he calmly turned back around, ordered his armies to retreat, and he retreated. Later to go into a city to take over Egypt. But he didn't want nothing to do with Ethiopia and its kingdom. He was like, no, we're gonna go left. We're gonna go left. We're not gonna go over there, because he could not understand how she knew he was coming.
And he did advance very furiously and widely, for other cities, and
yeah. So there were many Kandake. My research tells me there were over 500 Kandake between the kingdom of Nubia, ancient kingdom of Nubia, and the kingdom of Ethiopia that ruled and serve. And so their impact is still felt today. As you stated, with the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth, she fashioned the way, you know, royalty is passed on and leadership is passed on, very similar to that. And she held office in the same way that the Kandake held office as well. Also, you know, like I said earlier, there's a movie about the Kandake, based on the Kandake. It's called Woman King. But unfortunately, the way the Kandake are presented, you miss some of the nuances that I was able to bring out today. Another thing that when the Kandake fought fought alongside their army, I mean, those queen women, yeah, they picked up artillery, spear, whatever, and they entered into hand-to-hand combat for real, right alongside their soldiers. There were women that were part of the army of the Kandake. And that's where the Woman King movie, illustrates that. But it is the tradition in African tradition that a woman can fight in the army and everything, but she cannot fight in the army until she is post childbearing age. And so what that means is those women that fought in those armies, the Kandake that fought in the army, were mature women. They already had their children were already grown even, okay? They were grandmothers, okay? And they, ate well, kept themselves in shape, and what was ready to fiercely protect their families, their kingdom, by any means necessary. So unlike the movie, the Kandake that fought, they were mature women.
Not young girls.
They were not young girls. No. So, but so there you have it. That is the Kandake, as mispronounced as Candace. So next time you hear the word Candace, Candace really is a name. It is a Hebrew name, and it means pure and innocent. Okay, but as it's mentioned in the Bible, it was really speaking to the title of queen. Okay, queen mother even. And so so the next time that you hear that word, or you know of someone that is named Candace, let her know what her name means and the title that that name holds. Thanks so much for letting me share.
Thank you for bringing that information and for showing us that the legacy continues, and that, yeah, there are those that have benefited from a tradition that have been centuries old. So, and it's great to know. And so we want our youth, our young people, to know that the legacy that was passed down, the traditions, and that there are worth upholding and even fighting to continue. So let's join together in helping each other to continue to enjoy the legacy. I want to thank Mrs. Love, Thais Love of Dunamis Sound Mind. She can be found at Dunamis Sound Minds. You can find her on Facebook under Thais Love, or you can go to her professional page, Dunamis, Dunamis, Sound Minds. She's a licensed therapist as well. So, you can reach out to her, you can messenger her, or, you can contact one of us and you'll find out, we can pass on the information. I'll pass on the information for you, or you would contact her yourself. So we're ending now, but on a sad note, one of our sisters in Christ just lost her daughter. And so let's remember Reverend Joanne Lee, and let's keep her hymned in prayer and just be there for her. I want to thank you for tuning in. Please share this Wake the Nation, and I will upload it also to my YouTube page so you can tune in. My YouTube channel, is Flow, F-L-O, C-H-A-N-G -Ageda. I'm sorry. Like this, I just saw the news.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say that as we come to the end of our celebration of Black History Month, we can continue to celebrate our heritage because we are Black history.
Yes.
And God has given us when he created us and in the way he built us, he instituted, he imparted to us that tenacity to continue to move forward, keeping our focus on him. We can accomplish anything. He also gave us that determination that even across nations, when we were taken from Africa and dropped off on different places all throughout the world, we still embodied that tenacity. We still embodied that determination to serve and worship our God, to serve and love our families, our people, and to serve the entire world. If you look at the impact of the transatlantic slave trade, you notice it was God allowed. And you might think about, well, why would God allow something like that? Think about it. Perhaps if that transatlantic slave trade did not happen, many of us would not be present on this side of the world. And even though there were many atrocities that occurred, and many people of African descent were murdered and were killed, and all of that, we still populate the entire earth. There's no place on earth where you don't see us. We're there. And perhaps that was by God's design, on purpose. And the next time you see a person of African descent, Black, brown, smile at them, because you're looking at the face of Black history. You're looking at the face of the descendant of a descendant of a descendant of someone that came from Africa. I was at an event just this past Friday, and some people were getting an award, and one of the awardees stood up and said she paid homage to her family, and she said she identified herself as a daughter of a daughter of a daughter of a former enslaved African woman that worked hard and helped build this country. And so that blessed me. And
Yeah.
so it made me think about, well, who am I? I know that I am a daughter of a daughter of grandparents who were sharecroppers in North Carolina, and they were, my grandmother was a daughter of a daughter of a daughter of a enslaved African woman, and she went through a whole lot. She was she had children that she wasn't able to raise herself, but someone else, her fellow enslaved African co-workers, for lack of a better word, helped raise her children, and at least the ones that were not sold. And I thank God for our foremothers, our forefathers, who did whatever they felt that they needed to do to continue to have a relationship with their God, which empowered them to get through those times. And they've instilled that same empowerment into us, so that we stand here today able to face whatever society wants to throw at us, because we know, those of us who know Christ, we know we have the victory.
Yeah.
So we're not afraid of what tomorrow may bring, because we know who holds tomorrow.
There's that fortitude that has been instilled, that has been placed within us, and the strength that we exude is not our own, but it comes from our Creator, who
Yes.
created us and puts that in us through His Spirit because of His Son.
Yes.
And so, we can, and as you said, I have to say, Salome, I visited with her, and she told me about this going to Africa, and I forgot the village she went to, and how the women came together, and some grown women, and they just, you know, helped her, because there was no water in the village, there was no lights, electricity wasn't there, but they came together, and they helped her to get her hair untangled, to get her hair clean, and to love on her. And she was so grateful, and as she expressed her gratitude to them, one of the ladies said to her, no, it's what she did for them, in saying, listen, we made it. And so, on that note, I just want to say that when we see each other, like you said, we ought to smile at each other. We shouldn't be having the disparities between having colorisms, issues of whether you're leche with a little bit of caramel in it, or all the way to the bluest, darkest blue. the colors, the hues are so beautiful
Yeah.
across board. And that what we say to each other when we see each other is the strength and the tenacity that we have, and that our forefathers, and that to know that we who are here, and when we visit, whether we're from the islands, it's Trinidad or Jamaica or Tobago or Haiti or, St. Lucia or, or it's back in Africa. But as you said, everywhere in the world you go, you can always find our people, because by design, God designed that we, and as you were saying that, also because when we look at the cities and the countries that we built, every time I go to Washington, D.C.,
Yes.
I just, when I look at those structures, and you think about our progenitors that couldn't read but could decipher, could calculate, and here are these massive structures standing and will be for
Still
decades, for
standing.
centuries. Forget decades, centuries, because they've
Yes.
already been there for centuries. And so we can say, yes, the infrastructure, the whatever, the inventions, that it was born out of, when you think about the inventions that were born out of adversity, right?
Yes.
Out of
Yes.
that, it came because, and I always, I would say to my children, I always say necessity is the mother of invention. Many inventions are born out of necessity. Listen, when the clothes needed to be straightened, right? You have the iron, you've got the ironing board. When there was chaos, when you're driving after vehicles are on the road, you needed the traffic signals, and, and so forth and so on. And we have so many great people who have gone before us, and it doesn't mean that there isn't greatness in you. There is greatness in you, and it
Still.
doesn't even matter your age,
Right.
because you can always, there's always more to give. So I
Yes.
just want to encourage each person. And sometimes the adversities, they come hard and they come swift, and you may tend to get depressed, or don't, there are times when even those that have suicidal tendencies, there's too much greatness within you, too
Yeah.
much, really, to not do something. So if,
God created you with a purpose.
yes, and
So
sometimes,
live your life on purpose. That's
exactly.
what our foremothers and
Yes,
forefathers did.
yes,
They were intentional
it's true. And
about whatever they did.
right.
Um,
And I just
we
wanted to
have,
say,
yeah,
and if the community you're in, if every person in that community is telling you that you are nothing and no good, think about maybe moving. There's a story in the Bible that was recounted where Jesus took a blind man. When he asked him, "What can you see?" He said, "I see men as trees walking." But he took him out of his environment so he could see clearly.
mm,
Sometimes where you are, you can't see the greatness that is within you. You can see, you might be aware of some of your talents or some of your gifts, but you can't really see a way for you to utilize it, or you can't see in which way you can be beneficial, in which way you can be a solution to a problem. But sometimes you have to extricate yourself out of that community. Sometimes it's not even moving to a next town. It may be like moving to a different part of the community. It may be sometimes moving outside of the entire, like, let's say your borough, and moving to another borough. But whatever it is, don't let anyone hinder you. And as Reverend Love said, Mrs. Thais Love said before, so we wear different hats. So
yeah,
like, okay, what platform we're on? But the point is, listen, we do nothing without Jesus. So
that's
okay.
right. That's right.
Everything we do with him. So yeah, I just wanted to encourage you. It doesn't matter what age you are. And don't let your gift and talent go to waste. And so,
And
uh,
when you look around,
yeah,
you will see there's something that was created, something that was built by someone, uh,
exactly,
of African descent.
exactly.
When I look at, because I live in Brooklyn, when I look at the brownstones, there's a reason why they're called
Yes,
brownstone.
yeah,
Those were buildings, pre-revolutionary buildings
yeah.
that were built to last.
But
Okay.
even listen, even the buildings that are being built today,
Yeah.
there are a lot of Hispanic young men and women
That are
working
building
on those
those.
sites.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
is, that is, sometimes, a lot of
For
times,
cheap labor. Let's
but
go there. But those
that's what it is.
brownstones that you see, those beautiful brownstones that are, worth a lot of money now. Many of those were built by enslaved Africans,
Yeah.
and that didn't know how to read or write. When you look at the brownstone, you look
They're
at the
standing
fine
still.
details.
The details.
You look at
There
the
you go.
details.
The
That
details.
was their worship to God.
Mm.
Scripture declares, whatever you do, do it
Do,
wholeheartedly
do
as
it well.
unto the
Yes,
Lord.
unto the Lord, yes.
Okay. Those enslaved Africans may not have read that. Maybe they heard somebody say it and memorized it, but the mere fact that they took it to heart and then lived it,
Yeah.
so that all these decades and 2 centuries later, we can look at that building, that brownstone. We may not know who built it, but we know it was a person that was brown that built it.
Yeah.
That's why it's called
Yeah.
a brownstone.
Yeah. So
So,
I pray we've imparted something in you today. So as you go to school, if you're in school or your students are in school, you know that there were those who fought to end segregation or fought for a better way of living, for housing, for, a better quality of education, even for our children and grandchildren and great grandchildren. And so you can remember Thorogood Marshall, and who came from Baltimore. And if you've been to Baltimore, you know anything about Baltimore, you'll know. It has its share of issues, but there's greatness still. So and I say that to say that the communities that you're born in doesn't have to dictate who you become. It's not your community that dictates who you become. You are born, you are created by God with a purpose inside of you, with greatness inside of you. So let that shine forth. And with that, I bid you an adieu. And I say good night. Tune in next month. It's Women's History Month, so we'll see what we have in store for you. Tune in to find out. We did take some extended time. We know the month is short. We're given a month, and so to celebrate Black history. And so we just wanted to have the final one, it extended a little bit. I think it's worth it. You've learned about Kandake, Makiba,
yes,
we've known her as Queen of Sheba, and the other, and that these
Gershomite,
Gershwin, these women
Gershomite.
they were strong women, they were mature women, but they were strong. So sometimes you think that you're, and here in this country, I hear young people, they're 30 and they go, oh, once you turn 30, you start falling apart, but that's not what the Bible says. So anyway, is this not a forum where I'm preaching to you? I'm just letting you know there is strength inside of you. Stop it.
Still,
Stop it. 40, 50, 60, 70,
Let's
80,
go.
90. You're still revving. Come on. If they could do it, we could do it too. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Mrs. Love. I have to call
Thank
you right
you.
after. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.